presentation. We'll get started now. So my name is Jordana Vandersel. I'm also here today with Kate Federici, and we're from Casa Columbia, a partner with MCTAC focused on SUD research. We are thankful and happy to have Alyssa Slezak from DOH speaking to this topic today. And just some general housekeeping before we begin. Throughout the presentation, we do encourage people to chat in any questions that are relevant to our topic today by using your chat box feature. We really appreciate provider questions, so we thank everyone in advance for all of your input. And just a reminder, all questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. In addition to that, slides should be up on the MCTAC website right now, and the presentation will be recorded and uploaded to the website shortly. So again, thank you to everyone, and let's get started. So just a general overview of MCTAC. MCTAC is a training, consultation, and educational resource center that offers resources to all mental health and substance use disorder providers in New York State. MCTAC's overall goal is to prepare and assist providers with the transition to Medicaid managed care. And because these Hcbs clusters of webinars are still at a relatively high-level overview of the services, we do have additional trainings that will go into more detail. So listed on this slide are some of our additional Hcbs training topics. Providers can always sign up for MCTAC's email list and also visit the MCTAC website to stay informed about the trainings as they are finalized. And just a reminder again that today's topic will be non-medical transportation. You can see on this slide where it falls in the broader Hcbs services. And then just a very simple outline of what we'll be going over today, including vision, definition, components, business and billing rules, and then some examples. So now I will turn the presentation over to Alyssa.
Thank you. My name is Alyssa Slezak, as you mentioned. I'm from the New York State Department of Health. I am presenting this information on behalf of the department as well as OMH and OASIS. I just want to start out by mentioning that, as you all probably know, there was a designation process that the state completed to designate providers for these Hcbs services. There has been a change since we originally designated the non-medical transportation providers. I know that some guidance went out, but I just want to remind folks on the phone, especially those who were designated as non-medical transportation providers, that there has been a change. So that change is that if you're not already a Medicaid transportation vendor, you're not going to be able to provide non-medical transportation. So that means in order to provide the service, you would have to become certified by Medicaid and complete the enrollment form to become a transportation vendor. That form is at the link on this slide in the third bullet. And then once you were to go through that enrollment process, you can then go ahead and let OMH know, and they'll be able to give you further information about providing this service. So, next slide. Can I move this slide? Okay. Okay, so non-medical transportation services. So non-medical transportation services are the services that are offered in addition to any medical transportation services furnished under the state plan. So this means that this transportation is to non-medical destinations. Non-medical destinations are going to be destinations that are included in an individual's care plan that are tied to specific goals. Some examples are job interviews, college fairs, wellness seminars, or a GED prep class. I just want to point out that the transportation to and from the rest of this menu of Hcbs services would be considered medical transportation. So if somebody is receiving CPST or supported employment, any transportation to those providers that would be necessary would be covered under medical transportation. So non-medical transportation may be requested only for non-routine trips and is limited in duration as specified by the plan of care. So while somebody could, receive transportation to a job interview, they would not be able to go ahead and receive transportation to and from the job that they may obtain as a result of that interview. So components of non-medical transportation, one thing to note is that the way that an individual receives transportation in Medicaid for medical services would be the same way that they would receive the transportation for non-medical trips and vice versa. That includes if somebody, lives in New York City and takes public transit, they would, continue to do that. If they, require other types of transportation, then they would receive that for non-medical trips as well. And then any individual or company providing transportation services must maintain compliance with all the state's regs for transportation. So there are some limitations on this service. No individual can receive more than $2,000 per calendar year for the public and mile reimbursement for this service. And again, it will only be available for non-routine trips, not for ongoing services. Just like any of the other HCBS, any individuals enrolled in residential services will not be eligible here for this service. And then any transportation that the person receives through other services, including any through Access VR, will not be able to duplicate that here. Okay. Business and billing rules. Again, providers do need to become a Medicaid transportation vendor. So again, any providers that were designated originally as an HCBS non-medical transportation provider do need to become Medicaid transportation vendors in order to provide this service. Again, a link to that enrollment form. And then this slide just goes over some of the case examples. I already mentioned a few, but this shows you that the transportation would really be tied to a goal. So transportation to a job interview would be tied to the goal of obtaining employment. Some other examples are listed here, such as maybe losing weight. You might be able to attend a wellness seminar. Or a dance class, to become more physically active. But the point to note here is that it wouldn't be routine trips. So, maybe you would attend a wellness seminar once and, try out a dance class, but that wouldn't mean that you would be getting non-medical transportation for a dance class that you enroll in that you're going to be going to a couple times a week. So there's the difference there. And then again, some other examples, college fairs, attending a play, going to a barber shop, or attending a workshop or GED prep test. The next slide here includes some links to state documents, including the HCBS manual. This manual outlines all of the HCBS services, including non-medical transportation. The rest of state designation application. At this point, we've only designated HCBS providers in New York City. The rest of state application is due on the 10th of August. The HARP billing manual that outlines the rates for all the different HCBS services is available at the third link. And then the fee schedule and rate codes also at the fourth link. And I think I'm going to turn it back over to MCTAC to discuss some upcoming trainings unless folks have questions.
Hi, everyone. This is actually Kate Federici from CASA. We're just going to go through a few of these slides, and then we're going to get to the Q&A in just a few moments. So this is a list of the trainings that have been going on during the summer months. The first is the HCBS services training that you see at the top. It's actually already happened. Right now, we're in the HCBS service webinar series, and they will continue until July 31st, and those will be online. We just finished our Managed Care 101 webinars,
The contracting web series with Adam Falcone is still ongoing, and the plan billing training will be held August 7th, and we will be scheduling the Hcbs plan of care training for sometime in September. So this is a list of all of the Hcbs follow-up trainings we have in the series. Coming up, we have the respite crisis webinar on July 29th and the psychiatric rehab on the 31st. And then just be sure to go to MCTAC.org to find out more information about all of the trainings we just mentioned. And you can always email us at mctac.info@nyu.edu. We are always happy to help you guys out. And then again, I just want to thank Alyssa in helping us navigate the world of Hcbs. And so we're going to start the Q&A that will focus on the non-medical transportation in the adult world. Again, send in your questions to us using the chat feature through WebEx. And just a reminder, we'll be collecting all of the questions that you guys have been asking today, and then we'll bring them to the state to get the final answer, and we'll compile an FAQ that will be posted on the MCTAC website. So we have a few questions, so I'll read the first one. I was at a training earlier this week at Oasis, and they mentioned that of the 51 agencies approved to provide non-medical transportation, only one, in fact, is licensed to do so, so the rest of us won't, in fact, be providing that service. Is this so?
Thank you for the question. Yes, that is true. We have come out with new guidance since the original designation, and it does require that you become a Medicaid transportation vendor. We did crosswalk the list of the providers that were originally designated to the list of Medicaid transportation providers, and we found that, in fact, only one was actually a Medicaid transportation provider. So we do encourage those who wish to provide this service to go ahead and complete the enrollment form to be able to provide the service.
The next question is, would the person be able to use non-medical transportation to look at apartments?
I think that sounds like something that could definitely be tied to a plan of care goal. Again, it has to be documented in the plan of care that their goal is to find housing. So it does sound like something that would be able to be covered as long as it's in the plan of care.
The next question is, if we don't provide transportation itself, but are a provider who provides Metro cards to their clients and gets reimbursement from Medicaid for providing Metro cards, can we provide Metro cards for non-medical services under this?
Thank you. I'm not totally sure how that one would work, and I don't know if the DOH transportation folks are able to speak on here or if they're registered as attendees, but if not, I can get back with an answer on that question.
For a goal such as losing weight, would meeting with a nutritionist be considered medical or non-medical?
I believe that if Medicaid was covering the meeting with the nutritionist, then it would be considered a medical appointment that they would be getting the transportation to. But again, we will get back to you with a definitive answer. If Medicaid is covering an appointment, then it would be considered a Medicaid service, and therefore medical transportation would cover that.
The next question is, some individuals have court issues. If those issues are addressed in the care plan goals, would transportation to from court be okay?
I'll have to get back to folks on that one. I think that we'd have to think about that a little more. The purpose of this service is to help the person meet their goals and to facilitate, positive, outcomes. I think that may be something that could be considered, but I'd have to check for sure.
Are CMs from an agency required to complete these applications in order to provide transportation?
If by CM you mean care manager, the care manager would be responsible for completing the plan of care. There would be a form that's going to be filled out. It's actually going to be filled out by the person's managed care plan, and that form would be provided to the transportation manager, who would then, get the person hooked up with the transportation service. They would, authorize that trip. But the care manager's role would be making sure that the plan of care is accurate and includes any of the goals, and it would be documented in the plan of care that the person would need non-medical transportation to a service. That plan of care would then be sent to the plan, and the plan would inform the transportation manager.
The next question is, how do we find out if there is a Medicaid provider in our area that will provide non-Medicaid travel?
I will take that question back to the DOH Transportation Unit. I'm not sure if there's a website directory that's available for that, or if that's something that OMH will be providing on their website, but we will take that question back.
Next question, is anyone reaching out to transportation providers like MAS, who serves a 7-county region in the Capital District, to help educate them on helping their contract agencies become approved for non-Medicaid transportation?
The DOH Transportation Unit will be discussing this with MAS, which is one of the transportation managers in the state.
Next question, can it be used for appointments with DSS, APS, probation, parole, et cetera, that they may attend on a regular monthly basis?
No. If it's a routine trip that they would be having scheduled, routinely, then no.
How many times does it take for something like dance class to become routine and therefore not allowed?
I think that we'll take that one back and think about it. I think it's really dependent upon what's in the plan of care and what's documented. So we'll get back to that question.
How about transportation to the grocery store?
Transportation to the grocery store would not be covered. That would be considered a routine trip.
Where can we find a list of non-medical transportation providers?
Again, we'll get back with an answer on that one.
Would this transportation be provided to go to complete lab work outside the hospital?
No.
Would transportation to Department of Social Services for Medicaid recertification appointments be covered?
No, that would not be covered. Again, these trips have to be tied to plan of care goals that facilitate in the person's recovery from mental health and substance use disorders.
If a patient has a goal to go once a week to a wellness group, will the patient be able to get transportation for these trips?
Non-routine trips are not going to be reimbursed through non-medical transportation, or routine trips, I'm sorry, will not be reimbursed through this service.
Could the health home care manager also be the non-medical transportation provider, or is this a conflict since they are preparing the plan of care? I
believe that any person that would be providing the service would just have to be a Medicaid provider. I'm not sure if this would be a conflict of interest or not, so we'll take this question back. But if it were a yes, then the health home care manager would in fact need to be a Medicaid transportation provider.
The Child Center of New York is a transportation vendor with MTA. Can we attain reimbursement for non-medical transportation?
I will take any of these specific questions back to the DOH transportation team and get back to folks.
Who is responsible for tracking the cost of transportation, and how are participants notified if they are approaching the $2,000 limit?
The spend is going to be tracked by the state, and then the state would then inform the transportation manager that the person was coming close to their cap, and then they would let the participant know that they were no longer able to authorize trips.
How do we actually schedule a non-medical trip for patients?
The process is going to work similarly to how a trip is scheduled for a medical appointment, just like they would for the medical appointment for Medicaid transportation.
Would Medicaid cover transportation to weekly classes groups for the evidence-based national diabetes prevention program in a community setting tailored to the needs of people with behavioral health challenges?
It doesn't sound like something that would be covered under non-medical transportation because it would be a routine trip, but if that service in particular is covered by Medicaid, then it could be covered by the medical transportation service. However, I'm not familiar with that service, so I'm not sure if it's a Medicaid covered service, so we can get back to you on that one.
When is non-medical transportation starting? Is there a specific target date, or is this starting as of now?
Just like all of the Hcbs that these webinars are discussing, they're going to become available January 1, 2016. And anything, again, will have to be in the individual's care plan. So once the individual has a care plan developed with their health home care manager, they can begin accessing the services as soon as January 1, 2016.
Will scheduling non-medical transportation be through MAS?
Yes, it will follow the same processes as the medical transportation.
How can we see if we are the qualified non-medical transportation provider?
Well, that's a tough question because there is a list that OMH had put out with the designated providers, those who applied for the to be designated as a service provider back when, and then there was a list that had gone out, but it's important to note that that list is no longer valid unless you are a Medicaid transportation provider. So if you are a Medicaid transportation provider, and like we had already said, there was only one on that list that was, then you are not going to be able to provide this service. So it sounds like we should probably come up with a new list once folks become enrolled as a transportation provider, and we can probably post that list online on OMH's website where the other lists are.
Clients going to wellness to lose weight and or going for their GED, wouldn't this be routine?
It depends on the nature of the trips and what's documented in the plan of care. So I guess it would be different, depending on the situation.
Is this available to the dually eligible?
All of the services that we're talking about today are for the HARP-eligible population, and duals are not going to be eligible for HARPs, so no.
We are a clubhouse approved for providing Hcbs services. Does this mean that we will need to provide Metro cards to our participants if non-medical transportation is part of their care plan?
I will get back with a specific answer on that question.
Is there a limitation on mileage or distance from residents?
We do ask that, we try to find locations that are within the person's service area. I'm not sure if there is a hard, cutoff on the mileage, but we will get back on a answer with that.
Would trips to and from family be covered? Family, work, and family support, et cetera, is tied to goals.
I think I would need clarification on this question. I don't know what's meant by family work, but I think that, depending on what's in the plan of care, it could be determined that transportation could perhaps be provided. It would just depend on the circumstances, and it would have to be a non-routine trip. Transportation to and from work, though, would not be covered.
Is it the provider agency that registers as a Medicaid transportation provider or the individual employee of the agency?
I will take that question back to the DOH Transportation Unit and get back on a response.
With regards to transportation to a medical recertification or other entitlements-related trips, could they be covered if maintenance of entitlements is included in plan of care as a critical part of support of mental health substance use recovery?
We'll get back on an answer on that. Again, it's hard to say sometimes because if it's a routine trip, then it wouldn't be covered, but we'll think about it a little bit more and get back with some more guidance.
How will a transportation vendor know whether a request is tied to a care plan?
All of the care plan goals that are going to be specifically tied to this transportation are going to be documented on a form that will be posted shortly on the OMH website. And this form is going to be provided to the transportation manager so that they understand why the transportation is being provided and what goal it's tied to.
Just to clarify, this service basically provides reimbursement for whichever mode of transportation they currently use. Do they have to pay and then get reimbursed afterwards, or do they get paid for in advance?
I believe that in cases now where they're reimbursed afterwards, then that would remain the same. If it's a trip that is provided by a cab or something to that effect, I think it's paid for in advance by Medicaid, but again, we'll get back on the specifics when we talk to the DOH Transportation Unit. It's going to be very similar to the way that medical transportation trips are paid for and provided now.
Will upstate Northern New York also begin January 1st, 2016, or is NYC starting first?
New York City is starting first, and then the services will be available for the rest of the state at a later time.
It looks like we have some clarification from one of the questions we already asked. So, would trips to and from family members' homes connect with family members be covered if goal is to increase family support around mental illness and recovery?
My first reaction to that question would be probably not, because it sounds like trips to and from family members' houses would be something that would be more routine, but I think that we will take it back and think of if there are any situations in which that would be covered.
How often can goals be changed or updated to accommodate the individual's ability to use this service?
The health home care manager would be working with the individual and would update the plan of care whenever the person's needs change. The assessment for the actual services would be required to be annually or whenever there's a significant change in the member's status, meaning maybe they were, you know, in an inpatient setting or had some kind of crisis. But, you know, if needs change and the individual wants to change the goals in their plan of care, they can always work with their health home care manager to do that. The formal assessment, though, would only happen annually or when there's a significant event.
So are the transportation providers going to be part of the HIPAA consent if we are providing them with info on the individuals they are transporting?
Whatever's in place now, whatever regulations are in place now for medical transportation would be the same for this service. And the, just so folks know, the transportation managers are not going to be provided with the individual's full plan of care. It's actually just an excerpt from the plan of care that would just simply say what the person's goals are and where they need the transportation to and from. But all regulations would still be followed in this case.
When is the application for all of these Hcbs services due if we decide to apply for some?
I believe the rest of state application is due August 10th. The application, I guess, was technically already due for this service for the designation process, but again, that's kind of irrelevant now. I think, you know, as soon as you were to get registered as a Medicaid transportation provider, if you're registered before January 1st, then come January 1st, you would be able to provide this service.
I just want to thank everybody for their questions and Alyssa for answering everything. We still have quite a bit of time on this call, and we don't have any more questions at the moment. So we're just going to give some time, just a few, like a minute or a few minutes. So if you have anything else you want to ask, please send them into the chat. We'll be back on in just a moment. We do have a couple more questions, so I'm just going to do them right now. Can you clarify what is meant by routine? Two of your examples can be considered routine. Getting a haircut usually occurs every 6 to 8 weeks, and attending a dance class usually is routine.
We can provide more guidance on what is considered routine. We'll take that back. I think that it is a good point to consider, and I think that we should be more clear about what is considered routine. So we will get back with more guidance.
If the person's plan of care includes healing estranged relationships in their family, can they travel out of state?
I will get back with an answer to that specific question.
Is the draft billing guidance on the website complete, or is it subject to change?
The billing guidance that's online is subject to CMS approval. We're working with CMS right now on approving all of the rates in the billing manual, and the final billing manual will be posted once it's approved. It is draft form on the website right now.
Will there be examples and/or a list of what is covered?
The Hcbs manual does have some examples. Again, I think it's hard to provide a comprehensive list of examples because, you know, it depends on each person's individual plan of care. But we will be coming out with guidance about what's not going to be allowed with this service, and that will be posted shortly on OMH's website.
Did you mention if the transportation manager will receive a list of goals and possible non-med transports?
Yes, that's correct. They will receive a list of services in which, or destinations in which the person would like to be transported via the non-medical transportation. And those will all be tied to a goal in the care plan, and that goal will be on that form so that the transportation manager knows that it is tied to a goal in the care plan.
Do upstate providers have to be registered by January 1st?
No. Upstate providers need to be registered by the time that the services are implemented in the rest of the state. Right now, that timeline is set for July of 2016.
Just one more minute, everyone. I'm trying to read through all the questions. So if the transportation manager will be receiving the goals, is it going to be the responsibility of the care manager to arrange this?
The care manager will be responsible for providing the plan of care to the person's managed care plan, and then the plan would then send the information to the transportation manager. So the health home care manager would be just responsible for maintaining that plan of care and making sure that everything is documented and sent to the plan.
Do these rules apply to all Hcbs programs in New York State or just HARPS?
I think I would need clarification on that question. HARPS are a managed care product that will be available beginning in October of 2015. They're not an Hcbs program, and I also am a little unsure about what is meant by the rules. So maybe if I could get clarification on that question, I could better answer that.
Okay, everyone, so we are getting a lot of questions in, but there are a lot of repeats, which is totally fine. We're just going to collect everything that we have here, and then we're going to, again, bring it all to the state to get all of the answers to everything that you've been asking. The questions have been great. I really appreciate everybody participating and giving us, so much feedback. So I just want to thank everybody who's logged on today, and especially to our presenter, Alyssa, for answering so many questions for us. A big thank you to you. And if you have any questions about any of the trainings that we mentioned, or if you have any more questions about this topic at hand, please feel free to check out our website at mctac.org, or to just email us at mctac.info@nyu.edu. Everybody gets out early on this webinar, which is always wonderful, and we just hope that this has been helpful to all of those participating. And just have a great day and a great weekend. And again, thank